And with that, I've seen Sean Payton multiple times. I think I may have had him on the air a few times, never in studio. He's now with Fox Sports. Sean Payton, the Super Bowl winning coach, is joining us in the herd on a Monday. How lucky are we? You're here. Great seeing you.
Great seeing you guys.
So I just spent 6 minutes, kind of chastising Aaron for, listen, man, you got small school receivers. Minnesota is impossible to hear. You got to be more patient. You know this for years. That first game for rookies,
listen,
Drew Brees.
The first game for especially for first-year players, so much is going on. And they may have played a bunch in the preseason. They may have played very little. Generally, the rookies get a lot of reps. But the thing that I don't like looking at that game the way I did yesterday, and then all I've seen today is the first pass that was dropped by the rookie receiver. There were so many things that contributed to Green Bay losing that game. That sure, it would have been nice if he caught that pass on the first play. But do we think the outcome of that game's different if he caught that first play? They still haven't covered Jefferson on a spear route yet. Like, there were 3 of those into some 5-man rush pressures. And I think the one thing I noticed watching, if you just watch the O-line and D-line play on both sides, I think Green Bay suffered with some of the injuries in their offensive line. But the team at home played better on both sides of the ball up front. And then all the other problems came after. The pressure on one quarterback versus the lack of pressure on the other. The running game on either side. It all, I saw it in the trenches, and I didn't think Aaron played well. Honestly.
I thought he held the ball. In this, by the way, in his career,
absolutely,
that's been a knock. He holds the ball.
Well, but it's 3rd and 1 late in the game. We're still pressing for a score. Two downs to get a first down, and we throw one of these built-in RPOs on 3rd down, and we end up throwing a deep seam incomplete on 4th down. Game's over. And you want to see that first down converted, keep the drive going. I was disappointed, not because. And here's the other thing. I always used to get a kick out of this when I'm in a position now where I pick a game. And so here's my first day, Fox Sports, NFL Game Day, both shows, I'm picking Green Bay to win by 4. And so when that doesn't happen, obviously when you cover those things the next day, you're like, it's everyone else's fault. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And I think the good news for Minnesota is they look good. Yeah. They look good. And so there's always that back and forth. Was it Green Bay looked bad or Minnesota looked good and prepared? Green Bay struggled.
You know, the other thing, and I've been on this now, Jason just started on the show. I've been on this for about 1.5 to 2 years, is that sometimes you're in a business and there's new legislation, new tax codes, new cultural changes. Like basketball, 3-point shot. Used to be, you and I grew up with back-to-the-basket centers. You have to face
100%, yeah.
Now, got to shoot. If you can't shoot, you're off the floor.
Right.
So it's a different world. NFL's different. The NFL, for safety reasons, is the middle of the field is now the offense. You can't touch a quarterback. You can't grab a receiver. So offensive coaches, I mean, the fact that you're not coaching and you're still in your prime, forget players, you're the number 1 free agent. So my takeaway is I would hire offensive coaches if I had a young quarterback. That said, I like Mike Zimmer. But there are certain personalities, and I think Kirk's one of them. He needs a little love. And I think Kevin
I think
O'Connell,
it happens. I think, and we saw this yesterday, and this is, Mike Zimmer's a close friend of mine.
Yeah.
And a number of these coaches that turned over, there were 10 last year. We talked about it yesterday on the show. But I saw a few locker rooms yesterday that looked like orphanages that just got a new nanny. they just looked, you can't change a roster, and unfortunately, it's much easier to just change a staff.
Right.
But man, New York looked like they were having fun after the game.
Oh, wow.
Was that something?
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't know was the rap song Dable was singing. But that looked fun,
Right.
and Minnesota looked fun, and Miami. I mean, I saw those post-game locker room scenes of the new program. You know, hope springs eternal, and everyone's optimistic until we hit some adversity. But that was I thought was pretty cool yesterday. There were some first-time head coaches win some games, and when you have 10 changes like you had last year, that's a lot. 5 of the new coaches last year were former coaches. And it went well for a number of them yesterday, and a few others, they'll get their first win later on. But I would agree with you. When you go back and you look at how Minnesota looked offensively, that was impressive.
Yeah, I thought
that was impressive. But I would say, man, their front defensively.
Well, they went and got Zadarius Smith.
They got him off the team they played. And there's nothing worse as a coach when you lose one of your key players and then he actually contributes to beating you.
Yeah, Von Miller now rushing.
Not the next season, the next game, the very first game you play him in. The networks aren't silly. So Von Miller was a perfect example. He looked like he was 22.
Yeah, played really great. So let's talk. One of the things that jumped out to me in week 1, we don't want to overreact, but now nobody plays in the preseason. And of all the units, I could argue, you would know it better than me, but offensive line tends to be a chemistry unit.
100%.
Offensive line play was awful all weekend.
I agree.
Awful.
Agree.
How do you solve it?
Well, I don't get it. And I say this, look, there's a balance. We've studied the science with injuries and data, but I do feel the trend of younger GMs and younger head coaches is – let's just keep them healthy. So there's a balance there. At some point, you have to practice football. How do we do that? Well, we've learned how to practice better. We ramp up, we ramp down. We ramp up, we ramp down. We don't just continue to have 2-a-day practices anymore. But you need to play, and you need playing games. And any team I'm coaching will be involved in playing in the preseason. Now, there's 3 games now, not 4. We used to play a quarter in week 1, the starters. We'd get into the second quarter in week 2. And then maybe in week 3, we'd get them into the third and pull them out right away. And then week 4, we'd sit them down. There's a bye now. And the bye is put in place to help any soft tissue injury that might occur. You still have them for week 1. But the idea of they're just not going to play at all in those 3 preseason games, and then you get what you have yesterday and Thursday night. You just...
you can see it, obviously.
100%. I agree with you. And I heard your point earlier. It's much easier to create the timing in space with receivers and quarterbacks. You don't need all 11 to do that. You don't need a game necessarily to do that. But the O-line play, and in our league forever, in week 1 and week 2 and week 3 has been tilted defensively because the offenses tend to need a little bit more time to get their timing. But I agree 100%. When you watch some of the protection issues, the free rushers, the MEs, you can see them. And I think it's I just think you got to work that balance. And we're down to 3 preseason games. If you're not going to play any of your starters, then why are we having the preseason games to begin with? Are we just looking at the rookies? There's the time in the offseason has changed dramatically. So you still need
You don't get pads as much as you used to.
You don't get pads, period.
And they don't play preseason.
You don't get pads. You don't get dessert. You don't get pads.
So, listen, there are, like, I watched Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And there's always been, to me, whenever we guess if a college guy is going to make it in the NFL, the line I go to is 60% completions. Matt Ryan was right on it. If you're not completing, this is why I was very skeptical on Daniel Jones. If your completion percentage in college isn't like 61, 62.
Yeah, good point.
I don't trust you in the NFL. And my takeaway in the NFL is you can be, if you give me some ceiling, Matt Stafford's about 62%, but I get some big throws. And Trey Lance got a big arm and can move. But boy, I've seen 3 starts now. He's in the 50% area. And I'm like, at some point, Sean, you got to get first downs. What do you do? Because I think, Kyle's a schemer like you. He can create some openings. He can draw some stuff open. But I got 3 NFL starts over 2 years, and I'm concerned about the accuracy. How much better can it get with like a Trey? Yeah,
look, well, it can improve some. I said this yesterday. I think there's 7 or 8 teams that we're going to see, not because of injury, we're going to see more than one quarterback play. I think, and I believe this, don't kid yourself, I think at some point we're going to see Garoppolo back in that lineup.
I think so too.
I think we're going to see 2 in Seattle. All right, so who starts tonight? We're going to see the other one by week 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Geno Smith tonight. At some point, we'll see the other one.
Drew Lock. Yeah.
Drew Lock. We're going to see 2 in Carolina at some point. We're probably going to see 2 in Cleveland, barring the suspension. Right. We're going to see 2. We're going to see 2 at a few places, more than our league is used to. And I think at some point we'll see 2 in Miami. I think at some point, and they played well yesterday with Tua, but Teddy Bridgewater, I've had before. He's an outstanding player, and I think that's one of the unique things this year. I counted 8 teams where I believe we're going to see multiple quarterbacks play, not relative to injury, but just a controversy, if you will. And so here's the pickle if you're John and if you're Kyle. You drafted this kid so high.
3 first-round picks.
Right? And, man, it's hard to sell to the guy upstairs writing the check that, well, we're – and so our little binky, our blanket is Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Right? But we're going to start this guy. We're committed to starting him. But at some point, if we're not having the rest of the roster is sitting there ready to win. And that was a tough one yesterday, though, for any quarterback. I mean, it
was a mess.
Yeah. Well, it was funny to watch. I've never seen a kicker bring like a bath towel. It wasn't just he didn't bring a washcloth out or a wristband out to dry the spot. He brought a bath towel and thought he was going to get away with it. And I've never seen that foul called. And I'm glad I watched it because I thought, well, you can't dry a spot. We've seen remember the snowplow that came out?
Yes.
Yeah. And so when he tried to dampen the water area and then they had to punt out as a result of it, I'd never seen that.
So we have, you look at the Kyler Murray situation's interesting. So I said this earlier. When stuff gets public, if you have a problem with a player, you keep it out of the press.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got the team questioning Kyler Murray's work ethic, and it makes the press. I got Cliff Kingsbury yesterday saying, yeah, our practice habits aren't any good. It's like, okay, this has gone public now. There's obviously some lack of trust here and some real frustrations.
Yeah, not good.
It's not good. And so when the addendum came out in the contract, you have to go home and watch it. I thought, okay, you're trying to make him look bad. The agent comes out. So here's my thing. Not every player is Drew Brees. Not every player is going to go Russell Wilson and watch film all day.
But if we're going to give a guy a franchise contract.
What would you say to Kyler?
Well, it still starts with, let me start this way. When Sundays come, the plane pulls up, we get in a line, owners, coaches, and all the players go up the staircase and we go right. And the quarterback goes left and flies the plane. And so when you're paying a franchise quarterback and you're making that commitment, but oh, by the way, we want you to work a little bit more on your takeoffs and landings.
Right.
We don't like how you're flying at 30,000 feet. We don't. Well, do you have a franchise quarterback if you're writing those addendums in the contract? That's the question.
A lot of people ask that same question.
And it's a good question. And so, look, and then it became public and then back and forth. And, whether it was ownership or Steve or all of it's sloppy. I don't like it. And I think, in some cases, does he need tough coaching? You know what I mean? I want to be able to turn a game on when I'm watching a franchise quarterback and not know what the score is. And when you turn the game on and watch Manning, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers to some, you don't know what the score is until the network shows you the score. I feel like I can turn the game on with Arizona and watch their offense and not see the score and tell you if they're ahead or behind. Body language. And so I saw Cliff's press conference. I saw the comments afterwards. And look, practice better then. Kansas City looked really good. And Arizona, to me, looked like the team that we saw at the end of the season that was sliding, not advancing.
Yeah. So, coaches disagree with this, but I'm always a believer
Let's see.
So my takeaway is the game has changed. So there's no huddle. So you get about 8 more snaps now a game. And if you told me my quarterback throws the ball 32 times and he throws a pick every weekend, I'm like, I can live with that. Throw the ball down the field. I loved Andrew Luck. He had no memory.
Yeah.
I saw him play a college game. Joe Burrow yesterday made 2 early, horrible throws. What I love about Burrow is I can't tell. And so what is that?
That's a good trait.
What is that line of, I want you to take risks? Because my thing is, I want a guy throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah, I do too. But I want to huddle. I'm not interested in getting the Chip Kelly 105 snaps a game. I'm not interested in that. I want to play a complementary football game that helps my defense. We saw it with Brady last night. We saw it with Tampa Bay and Todd Bowles. We saw it, a winning formula that still holds true today. And I want to take the quarterback off the high dive because I know he's going to have to climb up there 4 or 5 times during the game on 3rd and 8.
Right.
In the red zone, 3rd and 6. And I want him to get him down to the 3-foot end. I want to get him jumping off the side of the pool and not make his job 100% have to go through him for the team to be successful. It's going to have to go through him. But I want to find completions and find runs and find touches for other players that allow him to go, I can take a breather on this play. I'm throwing a quick screen out to Debo, or I'm handing off on a reverse, or
so they need more. They need more layups, in your opinion.
We got to find those layups, and I get the RPO scheme. All right, I get the RPO scheme, but if the defense tells me in the RPO scheme I need a pass, not a run, then we're passing. All right, I want to run when the defense is trying to take the run away. And then how do you not block the last defender and still run the ball for 7 yards? Kyle's done that well in San Francisco. Every time you play San Francisco, you're defending the run, and yet they still managed to run the ball well. And you saw the same thing with McDaniel yesterday in Miami. So if everything about the offense is hurry up, shotgun, quarterback driven, then you're going to have more quarterback driven mistakes.
Good point.
And I don't know on the other side of the ball defensively if that's necessarily benefiting me either.
So Mahomes is interesting. Mechanically, when I watch Justin Herbert, every throw looks the same. He's just beautiful. He's like a logo. I mean, it's just the stride. It's beautiful. Yeah. Mahomes mechanically can go a little sideways every year. And you can see Andy kind of reels him back in.
Yeah.
He's obviously a very coachable player because he'll admit, I'm off. My footwork's off. When you watch Mahomes from afar,
he's the best.
Okay, so like there's all these arguments.
There's no argument. There's no argument. I remember doing him in college.
You liked him in college?
Yeah, we watched the tape. We watched all the tape. Obviously, in a tougher setting there for him because he doesn't have the personnel some of these other teams did. And then after that, we send him 2 days of installation for like a playbook install.
Sure.
Study it. We're going to be in Lubbock tomorrow. We'll meet with you. Met with Cliff briefly. Took him into a room, spent half a day, and he was outstanding. He was outstanding. Then we go out on the field. We throw. We work out. You know, it's windy down there. If you're throwing well in Lubbock, you can probably throw well in a lot of places, right? I mean, it's windy. And he reminded me of Favre because he had that, not just gunslinger, but he could torque his body. And he could create speed on the ball without the feet having to be set or perfectly set. So some of these off-schedule throws he was very good at. And I remember when we finished, I said, Pete Carmichael, Joe Lombardi, who's now with the Rams, or with the Chargers, I said, look, we're going right to the plane. We're not stopping anywhere. No one knows we were here. That's our next quarterback. And we got on a plane, we flew to Tennessee and had dinner with a group of Tennessee players and then continued our trip, our journey, if you will. Flash forward to the draft, and we're sitting in that room. We're picking at 11, and gradually the draft is unfolding, and Marshawn Lattimore is dropping also,
right.
And we really had good grades on him. And the rule of thumb is if you pick 11, you got to have 11 players you like. And pretty soon the 9th pick is up, and those 2 are still available, and we just need to survive 9. And so 9 takes someone else, and here we go, 10's on the clock, and those 2 players, we know we're going to get Mahomes or Lattimore. Buffalo's at 10. There's been a trade. The Chiefs climb into 10, and I turned to the room, and I said, here goes Mahomes. And we took Marshawn Lattimore. All right, so both sides win, but he was the best that I've ever evaluated coming out of college.
Wow.
And there's a gap before the next one. You know, he was that good. And so to watch him play is I think he does so many things well. The other thing I think he does well that none of us can realize is we can move parts with him. All right. And the mic ID changes and his mind can keep up with it. Like Drew had that trait where.
So mic ID, what do you mean?
We're going to set the protection off of one player. You see Tom do it last night. You got the 4 known rushers, and then let's put 55 down. He's the 5th guy we're going to identify for the center and the 4. And so we're setting the protection. Well, a lot of guys are good with that from stagnant formations, right? But watch Mahomes and watch, the tight end shift over, get set. And we watch a double shift, and then he'll change it. No, over here, 54, 50. His mind operates very quickly.
We said that earlier today.
Very
quickly.
You can
see it at the line.
You can see it.
Going 1,000
I wrote on my
miles an
report, the only thing I don't like with this player is the squeaky voice. That was it. That's a true story. That's the only thing I didn't like.
Wow. I don't know if I can top that. Okay. So how often, because that story, that you can't top that story. So how often are you going to be in L.A.?
I'll be in L.A. every weekend.
You understand, I'm like a music critic and you're Elvis. This was the best 30 minutes. I mean, not that I don't love Jason. He's fantastic.
We're not finished 30 minutes yet, are we? Are we already done 30 minutes?
How many minutes have we done? 27?
We didn't talk about the
I
Saints or Winston or.
Okay, well, I didn't know. That's very personal to you.
No, I thought, real quick, it was the tale of two halves. Mike Thomas is back clearly, and I knew he was. They said the practices were going great. I thought they struggled in the first half, but until they went to their no-huddle offense, which happened really late in the third, early fourth, New Orleans went to a no-huddle offense, and then there came the offense, and they did enough to win. I think as a coach after the first weekend, your perfect scenario is you get the win, but there's so much it's so much easier to come in and correct on a winning Monday. The challenge in this league is coming in after a loss and correcting and changing. So to get the win and then be able to come in and watch the film and say, look, we won the game, but there were a ton of things we didn't do well.
That's an easier message.
That's the best for the coach.
Yeah.
When you fly home and we've got a lot of stuff to correct. Now, I'd love to be the Bills or the Chiefs or
there's not much to correct.
And now you got to create stuff to correct. But winning a game and maybe a game you shouldn't win or you didn't play your best, and there's enough meat on the bone where the players can see the tape and say, you're right. That's a good scenario on Monday.
Okay, I want to ask a Sean Payton question now.
Yeah.
You've done football.
Yeah.
Is that, and very rarely it happens. It happened with Bob Stoops in college where a guy that's got 10 years on the tarmac, 10 years on the runway said, I'm done. But college is NCAA and recruiting.
Sure.
For you got to do football, and you got a big brain, and you got 10 years of like elite upstairs stuff, 10 to 12 to 15, and you step aside. And my takeaway was always, this was my takeaway when you weren't sitting here, was Sean is really intense and really driven, and guys like Sean, whether they're on Wall Street, Main Street, or football, sometimes can burn themselves out a little bit.
Yeah.
They got to come out and just take a deep breath, spend time with their wife, their kid, go golf. And so my takeaway is you did what you could do. You're really intense. I got to exhale. So is that true?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
No, you just hit it.
Yeah.
And some people will say, you don't need to stay up till 2 a.m. doing football. Yeah. Well, no, I get that. Some people don't have to and do it well. But for me, I need to.
Right.
Not because I just, and enough, Mountain Dews and Coca-Colas at night and music Red Bull but it's kind of cool. When people say, well, what's your job like in the evening? I don't know. I don't know what a coder does, but there's a ton of film work, dark rooms, and stop the film, turn the lights on, put 4 plays up, 3rd down and 2 to 3. Each night has a different night of install. So the Tuesday for coaches is getting ready for day 1 install, which is Wednesday. That's the first practice day. And we're getting 1st and 2nd down put in. And then we're going to practice it on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, we're going to work strictly on 3rd down. But we're going to spend, 6 hours on third down, 3rd and 2 to 3, 3rd and 4 to 6, 3rd and 7 to 10, 3rd and 11 plus. We're going to watch early in the season. We're going to watch yesterday's games. We're going to watch their whole set of games last year. And if it's a new defensive coordinator, we're going to find out where he was and watch and create really a bio on what they do on these down and distances, and then try to get to the best place. So you're right though, that you get tired,
exhausted,
and so I Parcells is a mentor of mine, someone that I really helps me, and he had a break every 4 or 5 years. That was his thing. And the hardest part for me is the GM at the Saints is one of my best friends, Mickey Loomis. Oh. So you lose your friendship, like the people, the coaches in that locker room, the ownership group.
What happened when you told him you were leaving?
We just sat and cried for about a half an hour. We were together for 16 years. And we just laughed, and then we golfed that afternoon. And then Mrs. B, who's been wonderful to me, and Dennis Lauscha. It's the change in, like, that's been home. Like, every day when you go to work that often, you see these people, and then all of a sudden, it just, that change. So that's the cavity as much as anything that you miss more than actual football. I mean, I miss the draft, and then training camp comes. Yeah, a little bit, not so much. Playing a lot of golf, and I'll do it again. I mean, I'll coach again at some point.
Yeah.
But those are the things in that first year that you look at and you're like, man, I miss talking to Mickey. We talked every day.
And it was football, fun, smart guy.
Well, we talk a lot. Like 16 years, we never argued once over a draft pick or a cut.
Really?
But we would fight like dogs over like what we were putting in the weight room from a sign or floor standpoint, or when the cafeteria was going to be remodeled, or why it wasn't, or like the towels that we put in the stadium on a fan giveaway day. I would get upset because you couldn't wave them. They were like washcloths, and I'd give Mickey a hard time. I said, is today the day of the terrible tissue? Like, we would fight over that kind of stuff. Honest to gosh. Like, it would be over stuff like that, travel. But we never had, we might have disagreements, but those were easily solved. We had, but discussion all the time.
Yeah. What a gift. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean Payton. He will coach again. Not last words, first words. Great seeing you.
Great seeing you.
Do we take a break now? I've lost place in the show. I think we do. We take a break and we're back in a second. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.